Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Streaming Your Animation Pipeline. This is a real-world case study, so I'd like to introduce you to my colleague James, who's come along for the ride, and Edu Martin, who has what I would describe as an illustrious background. 25 years as a creative director, has worked across, I think, every component there possibly can be for, working in the animation arena. And today, Edu is going to be talking about his experiences with Performit Live and the technology and how he's weaved this and intersected it into his animation pipeline. So if you have questions along the way, please do shout. But until then, I'll pass over to Edu. No doubt we will have questions, Edu, for you as well. So welcome, and we look forward to you sharing your wealth of experience and knowledge with us this afternoon. Here's animation pipelines.
Thank you, John. Thanks for the introduction, and welcome everyone. And thank you for the opportunity to be here with everyone, sharing a little bit of my story or my experience with the platform. So I think in order to get a little bit to provide a little bit of context for everyone, this is why I'm here, like talking about Unreal, motion capture, animation, and whatnot. So to provide that context, it is just as John was mentioning already. I've been in the animation industry for close to 30 years now. So I started in the mid-90s, and basically I've been a generalist for part of my career for many years, doing a little bit of full or all-round artist, doing a little bit of everything. However, at some point I decided, or I had the opportunity to get into the film industry, and I have been lucky enough to work on top animation companies. My duties or my tasks in those movies was lighting, and most of them, that's where I specialized, coming from that more like generic background to lighting, rendering, compositing, and all that stuff. And then lately, for the past 10 years, I have been working as CG supervisor. So with that background, as something that you can imagine, the amount of time that I have been dealing with render farms, waiting for renders and whatnot. And on the other side, on as the CG supervisor, I got really involved into the pipeline and efficiencies and how could we create project animation movies in a way more efficient way, or in a more efficient way. So that led me to start digging into game engines many years ago. At the beginning, it was just kind of for fun, trying to keep up and see what had the industry to offer. Could we reuse some of that technology or knowledge into our productions? And of course, everyone knows that game engines have been used in previous for a while, but then they have been evolving. Hardware has been evolving, and software and whatnot. So I want to keep an eye on all that on all that technology.
Edu,
Yes.
Just before you go further there, could you just in case for those that aren't aware of the workflow of a film, for instance, could you just give an indication of how long you would have to wait for some of those shots to come through, and how kind of the whole workflow and process is very organized and has to be very structured, because you're dealing with these storylines and you don't actually see the final finished example for a long period of time.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the main thing. It is rendering. It is super expensive, and in many aspects, the people doesn't realize it is not just the computing, but also the storage. It's getting an impact, and also the network, because this is the files that you're rendering out are usually very, very big, because you need a lot of IDs, all the information about in the image in order to be able to manipulate that image later on in comp. And in a big blockbuster movie, one frame, it can take up 30, 40, 50 hours, one single frame final for the movie. But then imagine that it is you have to iterate over that scene in your local computer. So you usually need to have like a very powerful computer, and you can only see a fraction. I've been in productions where I could only see one layer. Maybe I had to split it in layers and then guessing that layer. Then when I was compositing, everything was working. You could be like working with low resolution, unfinished renders on the quality, on the refining part. Oftentimes you also have to go through the comp in order to see the final result, because there are like some grading happening in there, or effects or whatnot. So it is not only that what you are seeing in your computer, but until you drop that frame into disk and reload it into the compositing side, you don't see what's going on for sure. And then send it to the farm, make sure or be lucky enough that your frames are rendering back, coming back on time. I mean, nothing has changed under the hood that you didn't know, and then your renders show up broken because there is some kind of assets that someone published in the wrong way. So there are so many things that may happen before you see just the single frame. Oftentimes what we even do is rendering on 5s, on 10s, because you can't afford it. If you are starting a shot, you're not rendering neither high resolution nor a full frame range. So depending on the farm ability, you have to like start throwing numbers that we can afford rendering maybe 120p and then 1 out of 5 frames, or maybe just 3 frames for the shot, and then it is as the shot is progressing, of course, you start like rendering everything, because you want to make sure that there are no glitches on the frames. But it's very painful. Seriously, it's nice, it's lovely. Having in your hands the end result of a movie, it's fantastic, but it's very painful, and because you are the last the last department as well. It is like you are like compressing all the timeline, because it is. I have always seen production getting delayed, but never delivery. So you are like being squeezed against the delivery, because it is like the window that release of the movie is one specific day that has been like pre-planned with years in advance, because it is Thanksgiving or whatever, or this specific weekend that it is like, we know that it could be like there's no Star Wars competing with us, all these strategic marketing logistics that are behind. So it is like you're getting all the pressure at the very end, while all the and getting taking care of all the delay from all the departments. So yeah, it's kind of tricky. That's why it makes more sense that someone with my profile was looking to ways to smooth it out and see how can we do this better, or at least easier or faster, right? Because it is like it's a hard it's a hit.
I mean, Edu, I think with that in mind, it's a really interesting point of how that's changed now.
Absolutely, and this was a kind of a turning point. This specific day at SIGGRAPH in 2018, when NVIDIA released or showcased to the world that is the new RTX technology. Because since up until that point, you could tell what was a video game and what was a movie. There was like video games usually pre-rendered, pre-baked lighting, and then shadow maps and whatnot. All those tricks that you have to run in order to get real-time feedback, right? And then now, and the quality of those shadow map, well, yeah, it is a shadow, but it is not really something that it can ground your characters and your environment. Especially if you're coming from film. If you're coming from video games, that was the norm and that was what you could afford. But when my expectations were different because of my background. So to me, being able to have ray tracing in real time in the GPU, that was a huge thing, because then, as you can see, this was rendered. I remember being live at SIGGRAPH, seeing this demo from Epic, and I was blown away. It was like because of that. I was at the same time I was waiting for renders, or I was like monitoring what was going on with the farm and the production that I was running, and then these guys were showing like full HD, ray traced shadows and reflections and whatnot. And this one actually, it's funny that we are talking about motion capture. They were also having like actors performing live and streaming straight into Unreal. So what they were retaking, they were doing one take, and then they did, okay, we don't like it, let's repeat it, and then they redo the shot again in real time and see how everything was working. It was like, oh my god, this is the future for me. So it was really a turning point for me in that. But Well, this is this, you know, it is like this is all. This comes from what I was mentioning before. It is like my ears and my eyes were like tears. We were dropping tears because it is like for once having my lighting there, and you could be you could be moving the light and seeing the final result with all the computations and whatnot, rather than seeing like a noisy image that maybe, you know, it was like kind of converging into a more detailed one, and moving your camera, moving everything, switching things around, and being able to see different frames, because that's, I didn't mention that, but of course when you're working in lighting, you pick one frame because that's all you can afford. It is like working in one frame, but then every one and then you have to move to a different frame because maybe the camera is moving, the characters are moving around in the scene, and then conditions have a change there, and then maybe your frame looks fantastic, that frame, but then when the character is moving away, it's getting in shade, and it is like, or an ugly shadow. So it is like here, being able to play the shot live and see all the frames at once, it was like, oh my god, this is like, to me, this is like a dream come true, actually. And what happened is that when I started like working with this workflow Unreal, I fell in love with the lighting and rendering and being able to edit everything live, and it was like, to me, again, it was like phenomenal. And then I started like applying the previous experience I had. Okay, let's do the animation. And then we started doing the animation the traditional way with Maya and importing the animation into Unreal, whatnot. But what happened is that, oh my god, now that I have all this power and I have all these elements that are live, I can edit live my editing. I can edit live my lighting, my shading, my everything. But then still waiting for these fantastic guys that are animators, but they're slow. I'm sorry, compared to this, they are very slow because it is a very tedious and artistic process that you have to go through, right? It is like all doing the keyframe animation. So I felt like being like a sports car in a traffic jam, because it was like, I was just, everything was ready to me to render, and I was just sitting there and waiting. And it is like, oh yeah, I know, it takes time, animation, yeah. How is it going? When I'm gonna get something there. And even the feedback, it's ironically, when you're working in animation, everyone knows that it is like, of course, you are not jumping straight into the final animation. You capture yourself some videos, usually you even thumbnail those basic motions, and you start with the blocking. Blocking, it is just selecting a few keyframes so that you can have a sense of the timing and the rhythm and the main poses and whatnot, so that you can communicate that. But it is the animation can come back to you that, oh, that's not what I was meaning, right? And it is like, so that communication was kind of also slow, and that happens also in feature animation or any series, right? That it is like you're trying to convey information to the animator, and it might be right or maybe not. The interpretation of that information, it can depend on each one. So it's a lot of back and forth, and in the meantime, my renders were done, and they were just waiting for me to speed them out and save it into the disk. So that led me to start exploring motion capture, and it's like, okay, now that I have this Ferrari, I need a highway because I cannot be like driving this. I need something that it is at the pace of the production pace, it's similar. So it is like, if I have real-time feedback on my scenes and my lighting and everything, I also need to have some kind of sort of animation that it's fitting, and they are like kind of moving along at the same pace, right? So that brought me to many different options, right? We all know, you guys better than anyone, the different possibilities that you have in the market. So I started studying them. But by the way, I believe so much in all this workflow and this new way of creating that I dropped my job at the one top animation studio, CG supervisor, and I started exploring this deeper. So I took this very seriously, and that's why I started also exploring different motion capture options from a more indie studio or an indie creator. That it's what I became at that point. It was no longer a big studio, because we all know that it is like, if you have the budget, like that has been there forever, optical systems, whatever. We can get into that in one sec. But it is for someone like me that couldn't afford that. It was like important to start like seeing what options could be out there for a profile like mine, and the types of productions that probably we're gonna be doing from that point on. And I found like three main blocks, basically. Optical solutions, we all know them, fantastic. They have been there for many years. They are phenomenal for many productions, big video game companies. But for us, for me, that was affordable. Still, you need like very like high technical requirements because you need the setup, you need the studio, you need the power for that, and blah 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 blah, all the sensors, and someone that is technical enough to like picking up all that data and transforming that and exporting it, blah blah. And you don't have actors, right? Because it's like you have to still hire people, whatever performance actor to do that. Then
we built our own lab, so you know
what I'm talking about firsthand.
We know the pain point here. High price, very technical, quite a lot of long time to process typily.
Yeah. But, not many people probably know that. Actually,
no.
Performit Live had a studio, and there's no, we were using Vicon, which was fantastic. The quality of the data was great, but it required 2 or 3 members of staff to run it, and heaven forbid when there was a technical glitch, as John knows, you'd be diagnosing that for a little bit. But the quality of the data was good, which is why we were using it to validate our own data.
Yeah, exactly. And this is like, of course, you cannot afford it. You cannot afford having it by yourself. But then if you need to hire those companies, they are expensive because, of course, what is behind is expensive. So it makes sense. And of course, for one, as I was mentioning, for a big studio, probably is within the budget. But it is if you are looking into more like indie and individuals, that's prohibitive. And then you have the other kind of extreme, the camera based, and some of them are fine for YouTubing. Some companies are making strides on that it's true, that it like combining images and AI, and it is creating this motion that is based on different like camera angles, and I think that's a great solution. Still needs to set up multiple cameras, you still need the stage, you still need to process the stuff afterwards. There are other kind of things, and you don't have your actors either, of course. I mean, you need to hire your actors. And then you have something more like into the line of Performing Live that is inertial. It's not especially cheap, and this is like we all know that, especially these times, there are like some more affordable solutions that maybe not giving the enough quality. Some others that are like a price policy maybe changing over time, and that could be like a little bit disappointing. You still need technical requirements because it's a setup. You need a software that you need to drive, blah 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 blah, and you need to hire your own actors once again.
There's a common theme running through all of these solutions, Edu.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. Yeah, and in this case, and it's this is something that I didn't. Why it was important for me? This is hire your own actors. That's because, and we will get into that. The short film now will show it, where we were running all the tests with the platform and the technology behind. It's a project of mine that I have been developing for many years, and to me it was a huge thing. That I wanted this project to have like native speaking actors, right? And then I'm based in Spain, as you can tell, with my, because of my accent, and it's not only difficult to find actors and performers, but also it is finding native ones. And I wanted to get everything at once. Of course, we could be doing the dubbing on top later on, but I was looking for that. And also, I am an independent creator, right? So this is like, how do I even start looking for an actor? Where do I go? Is it an agency? How that you guys probably know better than me. I don't even know where to start in order to, who do I talk to that I need to talk to in order to get one person, one actor. And then it's like, where do I take it to my studio, to my house, to my, where do I do all this capturing? So to me, it was a huge, more than probably a traditional problem being able to find a solution that was including that part of the actor, because I don't know how to handle that actor. There's people that is doing the capturing themselves, which is completely fine. If that's the case, that's perfect, because then you can have the inertial and then you all your things. But I have a kid there that it was a girl, and it like I don't think I can do acting like a teenager anymore. So this is, to me, was important for this is the way that they become, even the weight, and I'm kind of tall and whatnot, and my character needed to have like some more grounded proportions and whatnot. So it was kind of tricky, and it was it seems kind of stupid, but in my case, for my project, that was kind of it was a hassle to find, or it was important to find an actor or performer.
Yeah,
and that's why. Go ahead.
I was just going to say it's a common misconception in my previous life. I remember, I'd had teams beneath me that were sorting this stuff out, and you turn up on site and you'd see maybe 10, 15 people. Each of them have a very, very specific individual role to play on the day, and you kind of realize that actually when you're in kind of like solo land, or you're a creator or a small studio, you just don't have that level of resource available to you to do all of each of those roles. So you end up with 2 or 3 people having to do a lot, and then on top of that, they've got to give guidance to the performer, make sure the tech's working constantly, and all of that kind of jazz, just to do a small production. So it is really tough. It is really tough, and doing it yourself is you already got a lot of kind of things against you. But that's the great thing about the Unreal as an engine, is it does allow you to do so much yourself. And now, as you're about to allude, working with us, we have that capability of adding that in as well, solving the other part of the puzzle.
Absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It is, and actually, these are kind of the main points of my own experience. Why I thought that the platform, when a couple of years it showed up, it was like, wow, this is kind of covering all the checkpoints that I need, because it's a very affordable pay-as-you-go platform or solution that it is like I didn't need to put some money up front in order to get it up and running. The technical knowledge is zero on the mock-up side, because it is like just a performer doing something, and there is some guys, smart guys behind that are taking care of the data, and it is getting to your email. So it is like you don't need to know anything about the motion capture even. The data is good. It's I think it is like this a very good inertial. We all know that inertial, of course, is not optical. It has its own nature. But it is the data that we are getting is very good. The actors are provided, so this is like I don't care about that anymore. Remotely done from Spain, from Malaysia, from wherever you are, and technical setup again. It is on our side, because it is just connecting with the through the application to the performer, which is kind of very smooth. And we will check it out. We will check it now in a second.
I'm curious, Edu, when you kind of wrap around those points against what you've used historically, I mean, how much of a time saver is this approach now?
I think it's huge. It's huge because it is like everything is at once. It is like now it is probably the slowest part of the process is booking, in the sense of finding a time of the day or a day that where the performer and the director are kind of available. Yep. That's it. That's kind of, sometimes it is like, can you do it today? Can you do it tomorrow? No, can do it. That back and forth can take longer than the shooting itself, because once you are in, it is just recording, doing the session, out, your files are there. That's it. So it is so efficient that it is like after you can start getting starting the motion capture session, you have 1 hour. In 1 hour and 10 minutes, you can start working on your mock-up data in your engine or Maya or whatever your favorite app. So, and that's super. I mean, to me, it is like not having those round trips that it is like, we'll send you the data later or tomorrow or whatever. And it is, it's super, super efficient. And then coming back again, it is like you have it, if you don't like that data, since it is like the round trip is so quick, it is like, oh, I didn't kind of like this clip, let's do another one tomorrow or this evening. It is, if the performer is available, you can book it in 2 minutes. You can phone call and it's, are you available in 2 minutes? Yeah, let's put the suit on and let's do it. Of course, you need a few minutes in order to load the system, but I think it's that fast and that efficient, which I love it as well. So with that in mind, or with that, I actually was the one reaching out to James a couple of years ago, and I said, "Oh, I love this, what you guys are doing, and then I have this project of mine, and the characters are ready, they are all rigged and ready, and this is all running in Unreal in real time." And he loved it. He loved the idea, and then
I did.
We started like having some conversations and see how can we it is doing something with these guys, and then the system And we decided eventually to try it for real. I mean, because I'm very like grounded in that sense, and the same process I did with Unreal. With my background in film, I did it like I started seeing first if the quality of the images was good enough before jumping into really selling anything, right? And then it is when that part was done, it was like, okay, the quality of the render is something that I think it's within the world that I'm imagining or the expectations that I'm having, and then I can start digging into sequencer and how to animate the inside of the engine, whatnot. So to me, that was a similar situation. Now I have all my workflow. I had used a different mockup system before. I had used traditional animation as well with combined with Unreal. So that part was solved. That it is like I want to do something that it is not only storytelling, because I enjoy it, and it is just completely off from this conversation. But I always like working on tests that have meaning by itself. So it is like short story, whatever, because this forces me to finish, because I want to see the results, I want to see the ending, and I know that it's going to be a finished product somewhere, and that's kind of a motivation on my side, because it is like if just testing one character moving and then rendering out, well, it's just a technical test, but to me it is putting to the test the whole thing. And it is like, what if it was for real? What if it was a really short film or a series or a production? So that this is why we started thinking, let's do something that it's simple enough, but it is forcing us to do through the whole process of from the motion capture and the booking up until the delivery and the very end. And let me show you. It is like you've probably seen it already, but it is like it's very short anyway.
What do you think? I told you, I'm better than you think.
Now, leap. A little bit higher. Great.
Okay, you got me.
So yeah, that was it. We had a lot of fun doing it, because again, it wasn't just that technical test, but there was the creative part. We enjoyed creating the script. How can we make this some kind of funny moment, and then ending up with the robot doing something unexpected, right? That it is doing creating his own avatar inside of the system using a ballet dance, right? When you it's kind of something you're not expecting. And so. How did we approach this? It was first thing we did. Let me. Oops, hold on. I don't know why this is not. Oh, my slides. Why they are not advancing now?
Oh, is it full screen? Okay.
Yeah. Right. There we go. So what was the process for this? First thing, it was like I don't have the storyboards anymore, because they were so crappy that I threw them away. But you can imagine this, but very, very, very badly done. And it wasn't important for me at that point, the storyboard itself from a narrative perspective, but it was more important in order to be able to break it down to get a shooting list, right? That it is which are the actions that we need to record with the actress or with the performer. So that's kind of that. Then it ended up being like pretty much like the final movie, but to me it was more important like being able to split that in chunks and separate that into shots, right, into different actions. We could, since this is so short, we could have even tried to capture everything at once, but it is. I didn't want to take that risk, because if you do a long shot, if you make a mistake, you have to come over all the time, all at the very beginning again and repeat it, right? So that's kind of inefficient. It of course, I left a little bit of tails at the beginning, at the end, so that I could edit that. But I tried to capture, and then once I had all the information inside of Unreal, I could like finish up the editing where the cuts were happening and whatnot. But it was very, very it was informative in the sense that for the shooting itself, it was very useful to be able to tell the performer. It is like, now imagine you're sitting looking at the computer, and then what you're doing, you have the robot on your side and whatnot, right?
I mean, Edu, I'm curious, what was that like for an experience for you? I mean, that would have been a first time as a creative director, essentially directing somebody as a 3D avatar remotely. What was that like?
It was phenomenal. Something that it is like, to me, the only part that was a little bit, and we can talk about that a little bit later, it is that I was a little bit critical. It was not being able to communicate through a camera with the performer. That was kind of a hassle, because of course it is like communicating an action through words. It's difficult. Yeah. It's once I never thought about that, and it was like, well, you can tell someone to jump. Yeah, jump. What kind of jump? You have like so many different options. Not like this, but like that, right? So and it's very easy when you have a camera and you can see yourself. And imagine that you are with this attitude. It is like very aggressive and doing this and that, which is something that all the animation directors or even directors that directing actors are doing all the time, right? They are like representing, and then and it's very easy for whatever is on the other side to understand what's the point. Where if you mute the camera and just use the words, that becomes way more complicated in order to transmit or convey that kind of a feeling. So, but besides that, it was great because you have the audio, we were communicating through the audio, and it is like kind of like the robot in the short film. It is like, no, a little bit higher, no, a little bit faster, a little bit. It was like that because you could see in real time, and we can see it now. It is the avatar moving, and it is like, oh, hold on, I'm gonna review the last take, and it is like, it was great, but then maybe if you can step to give one more step or whatever. It was the note for that, right? And it was.
Yeah, I mean, and we'll touch on the point that you made, because Edu gave us some, absolute stellar feedback along the way whilst we were, supporting in this project about how we could improve the experience, particularly for the director, which we've done already, but we'll talk about that later. So yeah, interesting. Thanks, Edu, for sharing.
You're very welcome. So from that point, I realized that the show was compressed of there were 3 main blocks, and again, this was in this case being able to pick up a performer that had specific skills was key, because it's very unlikely that you can find an actor or performer that does ballet and kung fu at the same time. It might happen. Yeah. You may be lucky enough, but it is probably not at the same degree. And in this case, we were able to pick 2 different performers, one that was an expert in kung fu and martial arts, and another one that was an expert dancer. So that was fantastic, and then we combined them together. And then of course the short film itself. And this is kind of the application. And the application, you have this is as simple as this. This is a book inside that it is like you have the different performers, and you can see this dancer, the other one is actor dancer with the weapons, and you can start scrolling and pick the actor that has the skills that they are more like probably more line up with what you're looking for. You can also when you are creating then this is the casting call, that is the option that you're having, that it is like, if you don't know the performer, you can set your expectations, and then if the performer thinks that you fit that role, then they email to you, they respond, and it is like, I think I can do it, because it is, although I didn't see anything, I am an expert on that, or whatever, or my training on. So that's very cool, because that you have those 2 options. And I think the first one, being able to pick up an actor, I think it's phenomenal, because once, if you're working on a project in a long term, you probably want to have your character being consistent and being always the same one, not relying on picking up every time a different one, because that's not available. So it is like, no, I like this actor because it is fitting in my character, and I can keep rebooking the same actor over and over again. But then opening the door to anyone, I think that is also great, especially maybe at the beginning you are doing that. I'm doing a casting with different people. That's what we did actually, and it is like we tried different ones. We talked to different performers until we found that there was one that was fitting more on the character, and then you keep booking that character from that point on, that person from that point on. And the booking is that as simple as this that I'm showing. It is like you put the description, you how long it's going to be the shooting, what day, what the date, at what hour, and that's it. You can even book. You can propose up to 3 different options on the time. It is like today at 4, tomorrow at 7, or I don't know, the day after tomorrow at 9 a.m. or whatever. And the good thing also that it is like that these guys have implemented is this: you as a performer, you can also reply back, and it is like, none of them are working for me, but I can propose a new one for you. What about tomorrow at 6? But like you agree on that, and the book is done. So it's very, very straightforward and simple. This is running on an iPhone, and that is just an app on an iPad.
I think, Edu, that helped solve the initial problem you had, where you were kind of going. You made the point earlier that the biggest time cost for you was just trying to align with the performer.
Yeah, absolutely.
And our passion is how do we make this so efficient and effective and shrink time effectively that along the way we've recognized, okay, there's a gap there, and now obviously you've got the ability for the performer to counter your proposal with a time that aligns, and actually what's very interesting is that's accelerated the time between you going, yeah, I can do that job, and them accepting. So again, that's the beauty of the project that you ran here, and the feedback that you gave us as well, because it's that time cost now is gone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it took us a while. It was like getting through that round trip in order to get like finding a time that was suitable for both sides. It was like a lot of back and forth, and with that, it is way easier, because it is like you make some proposals, the actor or performer can do some other proposals, and you usually find the middle ground. It is like either on one side or the other. It is like, okay, yeah, I can do this one. So yeah, absolutely. I think it's that great addition to the workflow and to the efficiency, as you are mentioning. And then once you have this setup, it's just finalized. You do the payment online, and that's it. And then it is like just waiting for the day and the time of the day that you were booking. The shooting. This is actually a review of the how to give you and you have seen that already in the short film, because we thought it was funny to be able to also create that kind of joke of the character reviewing. But it is this is, as you can see, it says capture review, but the live shooting is exactly the same interface, same everything, and you can see the character. You can move the camera around it, and that's it. It's so simple. You have there the character performing before your eyes. You can rehearsal if you like, and then it is like when you have tried different things, it is like, okay, I like that direction, then you can start recording. In order, you don't need to be like recording all the time, which is also fantastic. Being able to try out things before like starting recording, although it doesn't penalize. I mean, it is like you could be recording all the time and it will be fine, but more for your sanity and not having like 100 recordings. Probably you want to rehearsal and try to get it nailed down and once you start recording. Here, this is like then the result of the recording. It is like you are like piling up all the different recordings that you are getting. And here you can see that there are like 27 recordings, and then you have these smile faces and sad faces where you can bookmark somehow your recording, and it's like, this is the one that I like the most, and it's easy to track, and then you don't get lost with the other ones. In recent versions, this is where it has been. You're going to be able to label those as well, which is fantastic. And this is where the character was hitting the wall, or this is when the character. So this is like, you don't need to go and get inside and play every single mocap data file in order to find the one that you're looking for. It is like with the label. It's very easy, because now, I mean, if you are in this window, you just select whatever take you like, and what you are getting is this. You are reviewing exactly the same you were reviewing before. It is like, now you're revisiting that same one.
Did you often review after a take?
Not that often, but more than during the shooting. I often review later on, because I might pick a couple of takes. Mm-hmm. And then offline, once the session is gone, then maybe I pick one out of the 3 or 5 that I like the most, for whatever reason that it is. So it is, rather than I'd rather be on the moment in the shooting with the actor, but that's kind of my take. Than stopping and then stopping the flow and then let me review this and that. Every now and then I do it, because I don't know if something maybe was working or not, but usually I take it as a good one if I like it, and then I will review it later, which is phenomenal, being able to go back to that moment and in time and compare the different options that you recorded. Yeah.
And the thing that just to add to this, I mean, what you're effectively going through is what you go through in a mocap studio, which is you've got your shot list, you've got your captures, and then you review your captures. And John and I both know from different experiences, but with mocap studios, what would previously happen is you'd be there physically, you'd see the performer do all of the bits and pieces, you'd kind of in your head kind of know which ones you thought were the best ones, the best takes. Because there was a video feed sometimes there as well, and then you would walk away, but then you would be spending ages waiting for the mocap to come across to review it in 3D. Whereas now it's literally you're reviewing it whilst you're still connected with the performer.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
So that as you said, to your point, you could just carry on shooting, keep reviewing, and then give feedback, or you could do rehearsal and then give live feedback and then do the recapture again.
Yeah, it's just like, I think it can fit any working style that can, if you're working, feel more confident or comfortable on one side or on the other one, but it allows you to pick the way that you want to work with that. And also because we are getting to this is like, now it is like you finish. If you want to finish, because if you want to if you are recording and you're shooting and you want to send your file straight to your TV or your artist or whatever while you are recording, you can do it, because it is like, just hold on for 1 sec, you do the export, you select the take that you like, you export that, and it gets sent through the email, and then you can keep shooting if you like, and someone is already working on that file while you're in the middle of the shooting, which is also very nice. That's not my case, because I have to do it myself, and hopefully in the future there will be someone doing that part. But it is like, now I have to wait and take care of the second part as well.
But it's funny you say that, Edu, because with one of the big corporate clients that we have, that's how they actually operate when they're doing some social media content. They will have a production team that have very limited animation experience, but some of the I say limited, they're an animation house, that's the wrong thing to say. I say limited in terms of actual technical animation, and being an animator themselves, they're more of the production team, and they'll guide what they're looking for from a social media perspective, from the character, and then as they're in the shoot, they are actually sending that file over to the animator, who's then ingesting that file, putting that on, and then sending files back. So sometimes when they're working, they'll actually have a rendered clip by the end of it, and if they're still connected with the performer, they can squeeze a little bit extra out, or they'll get some feedback from the animator, which is it might look better if we try this. I can animate it, but maybe if you can get the mocap to do it, then it'll be quicker. And you get these kind of like these interesting feedback loops between the different parties within an organization, and they're doing it for social media purposes. So Yeah,
I mean, I
they
think
want quick turnaround time. It's not a production film. It's not something. Yeah, it's they need to get it done, get it out and on social media, and then work on to the next thing. So yeah, the people driving the production are actually the social media team, as opposed to the normal production team that would be involved in a bigger production from their side.
Yeah, I mean, we did a project not so long ago actually, and it was for a construction company, and they wanted to do an explainer video, and so I think we essentially did, a number of scenarios where there was a industrial accident of various kinds, and we basically captured that, and we got from performer to capture into engine and output in under an hour.
Yeah, absolutely. It is like the way that they're being able to export right away once you finish or in the middle of the shooting those files. I think it's phenomenal. Because you don't need to wait to anything. The files are there, and if you have the team, you can start running. And as James was saying, it's these days, and with Unreal, as we have started the conversation, you can just retarget those super quickly. That we'll go about it very quickly, and then you can have a real time feedback. And before you are finishing, you can retake that if you like. So I think it's phenomenal. Yeah. All right, so let's keep moving. Well, this is talking about retargeting. It's super straightforward because the mannequin, the bone skeleton structure that is being exported is the one from Unreal, and it is like these days with Unreal 5 and the latest versions, it is retargeting. It's becoming like something quite easy. So it is just a matter of just remapping the animation and moving the animation to your characters. Then I for this project, but that's the way that I work. I jump into editing, and I started based on that low-C storyboard. Started like cutting all the different shots, and then just loading the animation inside of Unreal. This is more of a technical kind of Unreal thing, but it's very straightforward. I mean, it is like separating all the different shots that you wanna work with. And since you have all the animation, sometimes you can even grab animation from different shots, because you have a library of animation, and if you might need an insert here or on a specific shot, it is like, well, I have like 2 steps like moving forward here. You could even be overlapping in some cases 2 animations. It is one with the other. There are like different techniques in Unreal that allow you to overlap animation or parts of the animation or part of the structure of the skeleton. The animation was kind of tricky in this one as well, because what we did, it is like you probably are wondering, and how did you do the facials, right? And yes, we did it offline, which is not ideal, but in this case, it was the only way that we could do it. So we recorded the movement, and then on top of that, we reused the dubbing, but it did not. In this case, I think because the sentences were so small, I used AI in order to get those sentences of the different characters talking. It would have been different if the dialogue was more intense, but in this case, it was the AI was fine. And then I tried to reproduce those lines on top of the voice already and capture myself. So I ended up like combining the line that was delivered by the AI with my own like lip sync that I was transferring to the character, more or less on the timing that I thought it was fitting. Ideally, to me, is of course it's like having all at once, and we can talk about that later about the future service, future options that will offer the Performit Live, because you don't have to deal with that. It's like you have sound, you have facials, you have body all in sync. Now it is like I had 3 different kind of input data that I had to put together, the body on one side and the face on a different one, and finally the sound, and cross your fingers that it is like everything is lining up properly. So this is only the face, right? It is the animation of the face, and then since it was combined inside of Unreal, then I could like move and shift around the different the lip sync. With the body. But again, to me, ideally, it's like not only the time that you spend like getting those files, recording those files separately, but then putting them back together, and then it is like making sure that everything is lining up. That's also time consuming.
Are you suggesting that you'd like an all-in-one integrated solution that knits it all together nicely?
I would love it.
Not that I'm teeing anything up.
No, not teasing anything. Yeah. Not only that, but hands as well. because it is like if you have if you have seen this, I mean in the capture part of the review, the suit doesn't have like hand capturing.
Right.
So this is like, which is typical in any other solutions, that it is like having like to buy gloves and whatever in order to provide that movement. So here it was a combination that was another layer, because it is like animation of the hands had to be like using keyframe animation, right?
Yeah.
It was very basic because we barely see the hands and just like a couple of gestures here and there, but it is like, it could be tedious if you are like working with something that it is more expressive on the hands area. So there are like those were like 3 different animation inputs or motion inputs that I had to put together, each one coming from a different place, one from Unreal, one's from the FBX file, and one's from the arcade. So it is like assembling all that together. It takes a little bit of time. And now we are getting to the presentation, to the end of this kind of webinar or presentation, and I leave it to John and James about what's coming on. That it is like a full all-in-one combined solution that I'm looking forward to try it, because it is like, if we can have everything at once and doing the capture, that would be phenomenal.
Well, we're pretty close, Edu. You're not far away from having full access to it. So we've got the Connect app. We have a beta which you've been playing with, I know, which has the face and hands, and that has that fully integrated. So we're now in a position where we can capture the performer's face and hands as at the capture point. And of course, with the tools in Unreal, you have the option then to kind of capture something else and put a different expression in if the performer didn't quite get it right, or you want to tweak that and make adjustments. I mean, one thing before we go into tools, I'd love to hear what you think of like using Unreal from an animation perspective, because you've got the production and the lighting and the rendering, but a lot of what you've spoken about midway through is actually using Unreal for an animation tool, as opposed to taking the whole animation out of Unreal, animating elsewhere, and then bringing it back in. I mean, how do you find that as an animation tool?
I think it's the way to go, actually, because to me, one of the kind of important things decisions that I made along the way, I'm going to try, and that's because of my background again, right? It's like when you work as a CG supervisor in a complex movie, you can see all the in and outs that you can find. It is like, this asset has been published, it has been to be like ingested in the next department, and then in the meantime, someone is editing this, and then this has to be combined. This animation has to be combined with the simulation that someone else did in a different department that has to be exported in a different format, because because this is hair, but this is the whatever, and it's an in and out nightmare, because it is like they are very expensive. You need to automate those, but it is like because otherwise it would be impossible. But it's prone to a lot of problems, because it is like, why this is not showing up? Oh, because the publish of that file is not coming, and it's something that I have been trying to avoid since day number 1. It's going in and out of engine, and actually I remove the compositing side of my pipeline as well, because of that very same reason. It's just outputting and needing to go over a compositing software and then re-rendering that in order to see the final result. I don't want to have it. And the same for the animation. It is like, if you do everything in engine, it is more efficient, because it is like, you don't even need to output. This morning I had a conversation with a friend about that. It is like, you don't even need to output a render in order to review it. I play it in game, and that's my review. And it is like, if you want to change something, you go there and you edit and say, no, I need to go back to Maya to do those fixes and then re-export the FBX and reload it. And no, do it here. It is like, what is that? Pulling the arm a little bit up or ahead? Hold on, let's move it and play it again. And that's kind of the feedback. So it is like, that's why I'm trying to avoid as much as possible going in and out of engine. It has its limitations, to be honest, because of course it is like a complex rig that you can accomplish in a platform like Maya. It is something that is still not achievable, but it is like, depending on the project, you have to leverage and see which one which are the best options for your project. But absolutely, yes, all in. And we all know the effort that Epic Games is putting into all the animation tools. They have great people that I know working there. In order, they have created the control rig, and they are like, next version seems to be coming with more deformers. So that's picking up, and it's gonna be eventually like any other software. So you can do anything. Can you imagine and this is just an anecdote, but the animators, I have been working in lighting for many years, right? And I have animator friends. And then you have the conversation with the animators when they see their shots with the lighting, and they say like, oh, I didn't know that the lighting was going to be like that, because look at that face. If I had known, I would have moved it towards the light and then do this expression.
Yeah,
like,
I see what you mean.
You were picking a gray kind of expression based on a gray render, right? Without nothing else. And it is like, if you can make creative decisions in context for everything, that's, it is for everyone. It is like the animator seeing his animation with the final render. It is like, how come? This is kind of, it's a different world. It is that never has happened and can happen in the film industry, right?
I mean, that's
many months later.
Yeah, I mean, you make a really important point there, Edu, about context.
Yeah.
If you are setting everything up with the right context, then your outcomes are, well, you're going to be faster, and you're going to have you're going to have much superior outcomes as well, because you can see very clearly where you need to, what you thought and what was reality. So yeah, really interesting point.
And to wrap that, maybe going to do this point is, and imagine something that we've been talking about, and I'm really looking forward to it. It's like streaming, as you guys are doing already, streaming into engine from the app. I mean, it is like in your shooting you are already, and we have seen that in the past. I mean, it's there. It is like a technology that it is already available with using other systems, but that's one step further, because now we have been talking through all this. The process has been an offline ingesting data from the iPhone, from the FBX files from the system. But to me, the next frontier, it is like, let's capture an engine. I mean, it is like, and there's people, like great people doing mock-up, very using this kind of approach, and I think it's kind of the way to go, because now it is no longer your dummy avatar, whatever. It is your own character, where you are seeing in real time the animation that is happening, or the acting, or the performance within your environment or your movie or whatever. So it is like just taking that to the next level. It is shooting in a live action environment, actually, with all the final kind of product there, where you can take notes and make creative decisions based on the final product, rather than imagining what's going to happen once this goes into blah 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 100 processes until your final delivery.
It's true. It's incredibly true. I mean, there's as you stated, there are already studios that have mocap stages nearby them or on site, and they've got a team streaming into normally virtual production, actually, kind of like where you might have the actors side by side, where you've got the big LEDs. And I've been to a number of studios now where you can kind of see these big teams, and they'll have like an Unreal environment sometimes to showcase it, but it's still physically all in the same space or not far away. And the bit that's kind of our approach is, well, actually, when you break things down, like you've got someone with the creative vision and idea that wants to just get that out in 3D, or tell the story. They want these characters to tell the story, and they've got this concept and this idea. And at the other end of it, you've got these performers that just want to act. They just really want to, do the best they can in portraying that character and that scene, and really flex their acting skills. And sometimes that's a physical acting skill, if it's like a fight sequence, or it's ballet, or it's acting in very much a traditional sense. And when you get those two components, you've got the creative with the vision, and you've got the actor who just really wants to do the best performance they possibly can. There is an argument of like, well, how do you get those two people close as possible together, but still be physically apart? So this person could be anywhere in the world, and this person can be anywhere in the world, yet the two can collaborate and create something special together. And everyone can see it before it actually even renders out, that they've got it in one, and if they haven't got it in the first take, they can do another one and another one. And that's the benefit of real-time streaming. I mean, that's what real-time streaming gives you, is that immediate feedback loop. And when you see the characters, we use real-time streaming for live events. And the fact that the performer's got the new way that everything works is the performer gets the video feed up on their headset. So they're wearing, one of these, as you can see in the camera, a Quest Pro, which is, as you can see in the shot, they're wearing that. they see in the Quest Pro within their app, they can basically see what's going on, and within that, they are able to then give feedback and see the body movements, but also then have all the space and freedom to perform as what they're doing. So we've got a couple of questions. And then we've got John, John Alexander's come in. He's got a couple of questions. So he's talking about Cassandra to unbacon and add the hands myself, which sucks. Yeah. So basically, there are, as most people will know, there's lots of tools out on the marketplace. Some of them are great. Some of them are not so great. Some of them are looking at AI, and every one of them is approaching it a different way. And I think, Edu, it'd be good to get your insight into, your view. Obviously, from a Performit Live perspective, streaming, real-time feedback, real human performers, we think that's the way to go in terms of connecting performer with the creative and stitching them and allow the two to combine. But there is, other tools out there that take it from a completely different angle, which is a keyframe perspective, which is very, very traditional animation. And, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, to me, it is from my times at Pixar. It is like what I remember the most. It is like the animators got to a point where animation was no longer about movement. It was about acting. I was becoming an actor and getting into the character and whatnot. So and it was, it is like kind of the first one. It is like things have to be moving nicely. Like that's why the different courses that you have in animation, they start with the weight and with the timing, and the spacing, and they're like the basics of the animation. But then once you get to a certain level, that's take it for granted. You know how to move things. Now it is like, how can I make this character feel and make the audience feel like them? So to me, I think AI maybe gets there, but I think, it is like getting a consistent performance, because there is a head happening, something happening in that head that it is performing because of something, right? And it is like reacting to something, to some previous experiences and whatnot, all this method that the actors are using. So depending on the project, one approach may be the good one. It is like for a video game, maybe, or characters that are in the background and whatnot. I think that's phenomenal. If you want to go more into the movies and the emotional part, I think we are still a little bit far away from getting to that point, because it's that, again, it's either the actor or the animator, but it is like you put your heart inside of that. Is the machine going to be able to interpret that? Maybe if we feed it with enough data, but for the time being, I think it's still someone creating. And the conversations that I'm having with people using AI, everyone relies on the same. It is like you still need some creative vision behind it. It is like you cannot leave it alone. It is like you have to drive it, and in this case, it's the same thing. You have to drive the performance, and I don't know, maybe they provide us tools that we can really guide, very nail it. But I think for the time being, it can be a little bit getting disconnected with those characters, if that's those are the ones that are created with AI. That's what we are seeing, at least. They are very nice, but they are cold, kind of somehow robots, right?
Yeah, and that's one of the things you will find with AI in general. So when it's pose estimation, so AI pose estimation, there's a lot of filtering that has to go on in order to make the smooth motion you see at the other end. And in order to do that, it's basically having to estimate. Before everyone was calling it AI, back in the day, I was working on various projects where we called it pose estimation. And pose estimation is literally just that. It's spitting out numbers, estimating where the limb joints are over time. And with AI, where it's camera-based AI, that's working off of the assumption that it can see. And when it can't see, it estimates. Hence the name. And then when you've got AI systems in general, their challenge is they're interpreting what your input is, your text prompt. And as you say, going right back to the conversation, one of the things we've just recently added is the video feed live with the performer, because sometimes you couldn't communicate clearly what you wanted the performer to do. It's like, how do I get this? I just want them to do this for a couple of seconds, or to kind of breathe out as they go down. You want to get that motion, but you were saying sometimes it's very difficult to put that into words. Now, if you can't even verbalize that, it's even more difficult to prompt that into an engine. To say that's I want at the beginning of the scene, I want them to do this, and then I want them to kind of suddenly go and slouch on the chair over there, and that's tricky. Whereas with a performer, especially with the live feed now, regardless of the language, you can already kind of get across.
I think it's interesting. I mean, I think what's really interesting in this conversation is that it's the piece that matters the most is the ability to extract the emotion.
Yes.
And that's whether that's the emotion in an animation that you're bringing to life, or whether or not that's the emotion that you might or might not be able to extract from an AI agent, for example. And we've seen this firsthand with live events. So, for example, in the picture you see there of a goblin, this is a live streamed animation in real time, can see the audience can obviously see the animation and they can interact. And it's the non-verbal cues that sometimes make the interaction so special, because you've got the smiling, the little quirky eye movements, the quirky mouth movements, as much as it is the verbal conversation and interaction. And it's that I think that's the secret sauce of knitting this together, because otherwise, like you say, you get something that's very robotic and people don't connect. It's a bit like saying, well, that metahuman's gone into uncanny valley. We have a real eye for what connects. And I think it really is that emotion, and how can you portray that? And I think that's where you see that so cleverly done in animation films, in the work that you've done, Edu, they bring emotion to it. And I know the back end comes through with the music and the script, but they have emotion. And we've been very considered with making sure that our characters have that emotion. And I think that's where AI has got to get. It's got to be able to be adaptive, and it's got to be emotive, because that's essentially what we are as humans, and we respond incredibly well to that nuance as well. We're the masters at being able to pick up small, subtle, non-verbal cues that make you laugh without anybody saying anything. And I think that's probably the challenge that AI has. I see it as, anyway.
And at the same time, it's like if you can connect AI in order to fix glitches on the movement that the technical system is providing, that's amazing, because it's like foot sliding on here, glitches here and there. That's to me, that's super handy in that regard, because
big value there.
Then you get the emotion and all the acting from the performer, and then you get rid of all the kind of things that went wrong, or that maybe were not picked up properly thanks to the AI. It's kind of polishing and fixing up those mistakes. That combination to me is killer.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're gonna see a lot of AI from us in the near future, Edu. I can promise you that. But I can't talk about that yet. That's for another day. We've got one other question that's going to come in as well, which is to do with how booking times. So we do 20-minute bookings, which are $36. Which is, when you consider that you're effectively getting an entire mocap shoot plus the performer's costs and time for that, is incredibly reasonable compared to how much it costs you to even buy the hardware, let alone the other bits and pieces. So there's a couple of kind of costs there. I mean, Edu, what was your experience in terms of like the perfect time? I know you're becoming a power user at the moment. Like every time I talk to you, I've literally just seen that you've done another job. So what's your kind of 1 hour or?
Yeah, I think in 1 hour you can get a lot of stuff. If you plan it ahead, it is like 20 minutes is kind of tight, and it is like, to me, a 20-minute session is more for a testing, or maybe for a retake. Retake phase, that's phenomenal. 20 minutes for something that you've done already, and it is, you don't want to get like the full thing again, but it is like, oh, this specific shot, I need just this window, and it is like, because you are very specific to what you have to do, and that's kind of fantastic. But then it is in 1 hour. It gives you. I never went over 1 hour actually, and you can book 2 or 4 hours, but it's 1 hour. It is like and it's also exhausting, because it is like, it is like the performer is there with a suit, and you are like directing, and you have to be thinking on live that it is like, wow, this is what was imagining or not, or it is, it's kind of exhausting in a kind of mentally also speaking. So 1 hour, it is kind of you can still be fresh, it is beyond that, probably you everyone starts getting like tired of that, and probably your performance, talking about performance, and the performer itself probably start dropping. So 1 hour sessions to me, it is like very optimal, because it is like you can get out a lot of data from there, and you can still feel that, you know, that you're good, that you're not exhausted from the process.
Yeah, that's great. And there's another question that's kind of come in, and we'll just quickly answer that. So it's about playing a guitar as an example. So the way that we capture the hand data is actually from the MetaQuest Pro. So we take the raw data that the MetaQuest Pro gets, which we're all probably familiar now with. Pretty much every other LinkedIn video at the moment is AR examples. We get the data from the Quest Pro. We then manipulate that data slightly to fit in with our rigging, and then we actually then convert that data into our own bespoke pipeline, so we can stream it in real time. So we kind of like take the raw data, and then we make some changes to it. We add a few algorithms, and then we stream that in real time. We do the same with the face as well. And the reason that we do it that way is because we need the performer to be able to see. Now, in this instance, we've been talking about a director directing one performer. And so in that instance, there isn't necessarily the need for the performer to see. But in very near future, you could have multiple actors that can all see each other, but they'll be physically spread across the planet. And so the performers could be physically anywhere in the world, but they're all physically connecting together in an environment, and then they're playing a scene out. And the director would need to be able to communicate, but most importantly, the performers need to be able to see each other. So in order for the performers to see each other, we could go one way, which is AR glasses, or we could go the other way, which is using VR headsets with pass-through. And the VR headsets with pass-through is the route we've taken, because it comes with the added benefit that some of the devices have facial capture as well. And that's that way when these performers are working together in a group, you get the correct eye line between the performers, but they're also acting off of each other. So your animation timing should be correct and succinct, just like any kind of production. So that's the reason why we're taking that approach. Now, going back to the guitar thing, one of the downsides of using those headsets is sometimes if just with any AI system that's based on cameras, if the camera can't see properly, it's making a guess. So if it was being done for a guitar perspective, you just need to make sure that the performer's looking at their fingers, and then the system normally works perfectly. So that would be the only kind of technical challenge. Or you might just do 2 takes. You do one take where you have the guitar where you want it, and then you do another take where the performer's looking straight at their fingers and the AI is picking it up perfectly.
Yeah, and I would add to that, it is like for anyone, getting any kind of contact or props in a motion capture system is not easy to handle. I mean, it is like contact between characters, contact, grabbing, dropping, and it is like the optical solutions have some other options, because you have like real 3D space position, and it can help a little bit, but that's always tricky. So it is like handling whatever, and it is like leaving, grabbing. It is like anyone that has been working with mockup knows that that's kind of difficult from a technical perspective to handle, but that's why it's like being able to then grab that into the engine or Maya or any 3D package, then you can start like reapply, adjusting those things here and there. And that's a challenge that hopefully in the future could be solved, but now it's still like complex to handle.
Yeah, it's complicated. The benefit of the way we're heading and etc. is because we have cameras looking out. We have cameras looking in and cameras looking out that are on the headset, and then we have inertia suit as well. We're capturing at a sample rate of 1,000 frames a second on the body, and about 90 hertz. It varies depending on how much processing we're putting through on the hat at any one time in our bespoke app. So you end up with lots of data-rich sources, but more importantly, you can also take environmental information in the future. And so that will mean for props that, you will be able to notice that, you've picked something up. And, we're really excited about where that can go in the future, but that's not a feature that's in at the moment. Where we are at the moment is we have the face and hands in the latest version of Connect. And that will live stream along with the live video, so you can see the performer, and the performer in their headset can see you and interact with you, so that from a performer's perspective, the director is a giant floating TV screen from the video screen that's coming through on their Connect app. And so that means the director, they really can kind of like, see your facial expressions, see anything you're suggesting, any feedback you're giving on the last recording, etc., is coming straight through onto the headset.
And that's the same. If you think of that as a package, then that's the same. Access to the platform, access to the performer. So you don't have to invest in a system. You don't have to invest in a headset. You just have to bring your creativity to the fore. Book your performer, as Edu said. An hour is what he considers optimal time, and you pay for the time that you need. So you don't have to worry about a studio. You just need to be good with an iPad, and you need to be really creative. And I think once you've got that with fast output of data, so you can export, body, face, and hands, and that will be as one file straight to your team or to you if you're doing the actual animation. That essentially is the service that we're providing very shortly. It's a one-stop shop essentially now. It's a mini studio.
Yeah. So if we've got any other questions before we let Edu go, then please post them. But Edu, I think it's been an absolute privilege, and really thank you for sharing your story, and thank you for working so diligently with us as well over the years of building this solution. It's been absolutely, your feedback has been fantastic every time, and you've been incredibly supportive. So we really appreciate it, and hopefully we're doing your feedback proud by making the product better every time. So really appreciate it. I don't think we've got any other questions.
Thank you, and likewise. It has been phenomenal working with you, all the support that you have been giving, and I'm looking forward now to the next step, that it is like getting all since I have my characters already there, it is like the perfect proof of concept, and then start streaming those guys with everything at once, because it is, I'm sure it is like the next step, adding that next step to my already optimal workflow using all this technology. I think it's very promising, and I can wait to get it working.
Yeah, we want to stream your robot live in real time at an event, Edu, as well.
Yeah, let's talk about it, because it could be nice.
Yeah, well, I think there's a couple more steps, a couple more product releases that are needed, but we're not far away from some pretty amazing stuff that can be done. So yeah, let's keep working.
Edu, it's been an absolute pleasure, and thank you for giving so much value, and thank you everybody for attending this afternoon. We hope you've enjoyed it. If you have any more questions that you think of in the interim, please reach out. We'll be more than happy to answer them for you, either myself, James, or Edu.
Yeah. All right. Take care, guys.
Bye bye.
Thank you.